The year is at an end and the office of the Parliament had a most productive one. Here are some of the highlights of the happenings for 2024. We began on a somber note at the office of the Parliament with the passing of former Prime Minister Mr. Basdio Pandey on January 1st. On January 5th, the body of Mr. Pandey lay in state at the rotunda of the Red House for public viewing, where members of Parliament, local leaders and foreign dignitaries came to pay their respects, along with hundreds of members of the public. Mr. Pandey entered Parliament in 1972 and served our nation until 2010 in the capacities of Opposition Senator, Opposition Member, Leader of the Opposition, Minister of External Affairs, International Marketing and Tourism, Minister of External Affairs and International Trade, Minister of National Security, Prime Minister and Member of Parliament for Couva North. The first Rotunda Gallery at the Red House exhibition for 2024 focused on artwork with technique and materials rather than on a particular theme. Wire, sculpture, miniature and textured art saw 83 pieces on display using various materials and techniques like wire, clay, wood, mixed media, thickly applied paint and fabric. President of the Senate, Senator the Honorable Nigel de Freitas, opened the exhibition, which featured 64 artists, with the youngest being 13 years old. From January 3rd to 6th, the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anicet George MP, attended the 27th Conference for Speakers and Presiding Officers from across the Commonwealth in Kampala, Uganda. 33 speakers and presiding officers from more than 25 Commonwealth parliaments were hosted by the Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda, the Right Honourable Anita Annette Among, and the Deputy Speaker, the Honourable Thomas Tayebwa. The biannual conference focused on the topics of the environment and climate change, diverse and inclusive parliaments, security for parliaments, and the role of speakers and presiding officers. The conference was an opportunity to share best practices for parliamentarians as effective legislators and representatives. The Joint Select Committee on Social Services and Public Administration held a town hall meeting at the San Fernando City Hall Auditorium on January 18th as part of its inquiry into Trinidad and Tobago's response to the prevalence of non-communicable diseases with specific focus on diabetes, cardiological diseases and cancer. Addressing those in attendance were Chairman of the committee, Senator Dr. Paul Richards, and Acting Manager of Health and Disease Prevention at the Southwest Regional Health Authority, Dr. Sandy Arthur, who spoke about the different types of risk factors for NCDs. Also in January, the Parliament cheerfully said happy retirement to then Clerk of the House, Mrs. Jackie Sampson Miguel. Mrs. Sampson Miguel is the longest-serving Clerk of the House, having taken up the job in 1995 after entering service at the office of the Parliament in 1986. Current and former parliamentarians, along with members of staff, attended the function, which saw persons reminiscing on their time working with Mrs. Sampson Miguel and supplying lots of laughter with warm anecdotes. Mrs. Sampson Miguel was subsequently awarded the President's Public Service Gold Medal for her 29 years of public service at this year's President's Awards. The Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anicet George MP, received the Ambassador of the Arab Republic of Egypt, His Excellency Karim Amin, to the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on January 12th. During the courtesy call, the Ambassador signed the visitor's book and received tokens of welcome from the Speaker. In keeping with the National Festival of Carnival, the Rotunda Gallery had as its February theme the story, the style, the spectacle of Sailor Mass. The portrayals of this character is a significant part of keeping the traditions of Trinidad and Tobago Carnival alive. Madam Speaker addressed the gathering, saying that the exhibition theme aligned with goal number 11 of the UN SDGs, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable, while Target 11.4 calls for strengthening efforts to protect and safeguard the world's cultural and natural heritage. 55 artists had their work on display, with the exhibition comprising 69 pieces of artwork using various techniques and media. In February, the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago hosted the regional workshop of the Public Accounts Committees and Trade Scrutiny. Organized by the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association UK office, The 3-day workshop saw participants from the United Kingdom and across the Caribbean come together to deepen their understanding of trade and public accounts matters, share challenges within their own legislatures, and exchange new and best approaches to promote effective scrutiny. Attendees included clerks and members of Parliament who were all eager to return and revitalize their respective public accounts committees and bring sharper focus to trade scrutiny. The workshop saw parliamentarians and officials share knowledge and experience through peer-to-peer learning and was envisioned as a catalyst for building networks and partnerships across the region. Meanwhile, the 9-member delegation from the UK Parliament that came for the workshop paid a joint courtesy call on the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. The contingent was led by member of the House of Lords, Baroness Diane Hayter of Kentish Town, and included Chair of the Public Accounts Committee, Dame Meg Hillier, MP, and member of the Business and Trade Committee, Anthony Magnall, MP. After initial introductions and talks among the group, they exchanged tokens of appreciation. March is the month when International Women's Day is observed and celebrated at the office of the Parliament. The exhibition at the Rotunda Gallery at the Red House acknowledged this by adopting the 2024 UN theme, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress. Addressing those present for the launch was the Speaker of the House. Madam Speaker pointed out that even though women have been at the forefront of change over the decades, women are still awaiting parity. She spoke on some of the topics the current artwork highlighted and posited the view that women's issues and achievements must not be dimmed. The Parliament Channel also commemorated the day with programming geared towards recognizing the challenges and celebrating women. March 7 saw Centrepoint Mall in Shoguanas as the next stop for the third in a series of town hall meetings put on by the JSC on social services and public administration. The meetings were aimed at gathering comments from members of the public for the committee's inquiry into Trinidad and Tobago's response to the prevalence of non-communicable diseases with specific focus on diabetes, cardiological diseases, and cancer. Chairman of the committee, Senator Dr. Paul Richards, gave the audience the rationale for the town hall meetings. Speaking on health matters was primary care physician 2 at the North Central Regional Health Authority, Dr. Abdul Hamid. He zeroed in on one particularly critical statistic that should be addressed urgently: obesity. Members of the public were also invited to give their experiences and feedback regarding the management of the public healthcare system. Commonwealth Day is celebrated on the second Monday of March annually, with the theme this year being One Resilient Common Future, Transforming Our Commonwealth. On March 11th, there was the hoisting of the Commonwealth flag on the grounds of the Red House. Present for the event were the President of the Senate, Senator the Honorable Nigel de Freitas, the Deputy Speaker of the House, Esmond Ford MP, and then Acting Clerk of the Senate, Ms. Kiba Jacob Motley. Then on March 18th, the Parliament held a wreath-laying ceremony at the Cenotaph at Memorial Park in Port of Spain. Diplomats, members of Parliament, and dignitaries of 20 Commonwealth nations attended the event in commemoration of the 75th anniversary of the Commonwealth, each laying a wreath. After the solemn event, the presiding officers hosted a luncheon at the Red House for the attendees, along with a group photo to mark the occasion. The Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George MP, attended a joint special meeting at the headquarters of the Organization of American States in Washington, D.C. from March 12 to 14th. Madam Speaker, who is also Vice President of Parliamericas, was part of a delegation of 22 parliamentarians representing 17 national legislatures from Latin America, the Caribbean, and Canada. The Parliamericas delegation engaged in a series of meetings with OAS officials, U.S. Congress representatives, and Washington-based partners, at one of which Madam Speaker herself made a presentation. A 7-member delegation from the International Department of the Communist Party of China paid a courtesy call on the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. During the courtesy call, Head of Delegation Her Excellency Wang Jiawei signed the visitor's book and received tokens of welcome from the Speaker. The delegation also included Ambassador of China, His Excellency Fan Chiao, and Director General, International Department of the Communist Party of China, Mr. Wang Yilin. The President of the Senate, the Honorable Nigel de Freitas, and the Deputy Clerk of the Senate, Mr. Julian Ogilvie, attended the 148th Interparliamentary Union Assembly in Geneva, Switzerland in March. All IPU statutory bodies met on this occasion. However, the general debate focused on the overall theme, parliamentary diplomacy, building bridges for peace and understanding, and provided a platform for delegates to deliberate, exchange views, and galvanize parliamentary action in this area. The ambassador for Turkey, Her Excellency Bengu Yiğit Guden, presented a collection of books on the history and culture of her country to the Parliament Library. Her Excellency addressed the small gathering, which included the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George MP, the then Acting Clerk of the Senate, Ms. Kiba Jacob Motley, and Librarian 4 at the Parliament Library, Ms. Jancy Regis. The ambassador thanked the Parliament for accepting the collection of limited edition books which focus on art and history. Madam Speaker also brought remarks thanking the ambassador for the generous donation and reflecting on the long and cordial diplomatic ties between the two countries. After the viewing of the collection, Madam Speaker and Her Excellency were taken on a tour of the library, which included the showing of a short film on Turkey. April is Health and Fitness Month at the Office of the Parliament, which sees a host of activities geared towards well-being of employees. Members of staff were able to measure their height, weight, blood pressure and cholesterol readings, also their HIV status and any counseling if needed, along with dental and glaucoma screenings. There were also Fruit Fridays and weekly sessions of aerobics. A month-long football tournament was also a feature of the activities. Earth Day is observed on April 22nd annually, and the Office of the Parliament celebrated in several ways. The Rotunda Gallery presented its exhibition, Restore the Earth, Eliminate Plastic Pollution. The artists highlighted the various impacts plastic pollution has on the planet and by extension the land, oceans and humans. Some of the art pieces even included the use of plastic materials, which the artists would have recycled to create a deeper visual impact on the importance of eliminating plastic pollution. The Office of the Parliament also held a month-long Planting Seeds of Knowledge initiative, where the presiding officers oversaw tree planting exercises and the donation of vertical drip irrigation systems for several primary and secondary schools across Trinidad. The Executive Committee of the Trinidad and Tobago branch of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association and the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC, hosted a masterclass for all members of Parliament on the topic Modernizing Trinidad and Tobago's Statistical Ecosystem through Enhanced SDG Data Development. Also addressing the members were Director of ECLAC Caribbean, Ms. Diane Corliss, who noted that the Parliament is the highest authority in the land and that full embrace of data goes hand in hand with sustainable development. Professor of the Practice in Data Science at the University of Virginia, Ms. Renee Cummings, spoke on the use of data and artificial intelligence to power sustainable development. Arima was the site of the 4th Town Hall meeting, Public Healthcare Services and You, put on by the JSC on Social Services and Public Administration as part of its inquiry into Trinidad and Tobago's response to the prevalence of non-communicable diseases. Broadcast live from the Arima Community Center, the audience was addressed by Acting County Medical Officer of Health for Nariva Mayaro, Dr. Jamila Augustine. Members of the public were then invited to give their experiences with the public healthcare system or give suggestions for its improvement. The Rotunda Gallery's May exhibition was titled Shaping a Better Tomorrow, The Joy of Giving. The gallery collaborated with the Trinidad and Tobago Red Cross Society and the International Federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent Societies in commemoration of World Red Cross Day, observed on May 8th. For this exhibition, the artists highlighted the dedication and hard work that volunteers and workers do and focused on the many areas in which they perform. A delegation from the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago visited the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, Canada between May 6th and 9th. The Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George MP, led the visit, which was pursuant to the partnership agreement that was signed in 2019 by the two parliaments. A signing ceremony was held with Madam Speaker and the Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, the Honourable Ted Arnott MPP, cementing the twinning agreement between the Trinidad and Tobago branch of the CPA and the Legislative Assembly of the Ontario branch of the CPA. During the visit, the delegation also met with and presented tokens to the Clerk of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario, Mr. Trevor Day, and Deputy Clerk and Executive Director of Legislative Services, Ms. Valerie Quincy Lim. Discussions were also held with Senior Parliamentary Counsel William Wong, and the team attended a business session conducted by the Director of Legislative Library, Ms. Eileen Lewis, and the Director of Legislative Research Service, Mr. Michael Morden. Also in the month of May, representatives of regional parliaments attended a 3-day seminar jointly organized by the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago and the Interparliamentary Union. The theme for discussion was Accelerating Parliamentary Action on Climate Change for a Resilient and Sustainable Region. The seminar focused on climate change, including the role of artificial intelligence in climate change mitigation and migration. The objectives of the regional seminar included promoting dialogue with experts and among parliaments, highlighting good practices given Parliament's legislative, oversight, representative and budgetary functions, and for parliaments to lead the way in responding to climate change. The Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean Development Coordination Office, Mr. Roberto Valent, met with Speaker of the House, the Honourable Bridget Anisette George MP, on May 22nd. Mr. Valent signed a visitor's book, after which he was presented with a token. Accompanying Mr. Valent was UN Resident Coordinator Ms. Joanna Kazana, who was also presented with a token. For World Environment Day, the presiding officers continued with tree planting and donations of vertical drip irrigation systems. World Environment Day is celebrated on 5th June annually, and the schools visited were the St. Paul's Boys Anglican School in San Fernando, which saw the planting of trees on the school's compound; the San Fernando West Secondary School, where the Mayor of San Fernando, His Worship Robert Paris, assisted in the tree planting ceremony; and the Serval Life Center in La Romaine, which received a vertical drip irrigation system. Tobago's turn came on June 13th for the series of town hall meetings put on by the JSC on social services and public administration. The meetings form part of an inquiry into Trinidad and Tobago's response to the prevalence of non-communicable diseases with specific focus on diabetes, cardiological diseases, and cancer. The committee met with members of the public at the Ann Mitchell Gift Auditorium of the Scarborough Library, and as was customary, persons were invited to give their experiences with the public healthcare system or give suggestions for improvements. A delegation from the Parliament of Jamaica paid a working visit to the office of the Parliament. The two parties engaged in discussions with a view to assessing best practices in relation to areas which included Parliament's Secretariat and Administration, the responsibilities of the presiding officers, the library, the research support, and Hansard services, among other topics. The visit entailed a tour of the parliamentary complex, courtesy calls with the presiding and deputy presiding officers, and meetings with the clerks of the houses and several senior managers. Included in the visiting delegation were the Speaker of the House of Representatives for Jamaica, the Honourable Julius Holness, MP, Clerk of the Houses, Ms. Colleen Lowe, Acting Deputy Clerk of the Houses, Ms. Chazan Brandon, and Ms. Rochelle Sims of eGov Jamaica Limited. The annual wreath-laying ceremony to remember those that died in the 1990 attempted coup d'etat was held on July 29. In attendance were President of the Republic, Her Excellency Christine Kangaloo ORTT, who was met by the presiding officers of the Parliament. The entourage then proceeded to the cenotaph, where wreaths were laid by Her Excellency, the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Vice President of the Senate, and the Deputy Speaker of the House, along with the former Speaker of the House, Mr. Nizam Mohammed. A minute of silence followed, then the playing of the last post. Every year, a wreath-laying ceremony is observed at the cenotaph as a remembrance and a mark of respect for those that paid the ultimate sacrifice for Trinidad and Tobago. In July, the Rotunda Gallery exhibition was titled Ink and Pixels, a showcase of cartoon, comic, digital, and anime art. The artists showed off their creative skills with a showcase of original comic strips or books, where artists wrote their own stories and created original characters made up or from their personal lives. The pieces demonstrated precise digital drawing and digital painting skills, drawing and illustrations of fan art from popular movies, comics, and manga, as well as 2- and 3-dimensional animation projects they carefully created to bring to life characters, environments, and narratives. A parliamentary debate was the culmination of the Young Woman Empowered to Serve YES leadership program. Pursuant to its mission, the Women Parliamentarians of Trinidad and Tobago, the WPTT, conducted the leadership program, which was designed to inspire and equip young women for active roles in political decision-making spaces. The debate allowed the participants to utilize the skills they learned as they debated a motion to introduce legislation within 12 months to make sextortion a criminal offense. The Rotunda Gallery hosted 2 exhibitions for August. The first, Percussion, the Sounds of Steel Pan, in commemoration of World Steel Pan Day, celebrated on August 11th. For this exhibition, the artists showed off their renditions of our steel pan instrument from abstract to representational. Some of the artists also highlighted several steel bands in their element of performance. The second exhibition, Unity in Diversity, celebrating Trinidad and Tobago, was in commemoration of Trinidad and Tobago's 62nd year of independence. The artists focused on their favorite qualities of each island of our twin island estate, embracing the mosaic of cultures, histories, and landscapes that make our nation truly one of a kind. August 12th is recognized by the United Nations as International Youth Day annually and seeks to bring youth issues to the attention of the international community while celebrating the potential of youth as partners in today's global society. This year, the Office of the Parliament celebrated by holding a Spotlight on Youth workshop for 23 young people with the theme focusing on food systems, agriculture, and environmental practices. Experts were invited to form a panel and gave presentations from varied perspectives on the theme, including challenges and tips for success. The Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago launched the Youth Parliamentary Network on August 15th. The embryonic group was conceptualized and formed as a response to the refrain by young people that their concerns are not given a hearing. Welcoming the young attendees was Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George MP, who stressed the importance of addressing the issues that confront young people like gender inequality and access to health care, work, and education. Madam Speaker's hope is that the network matures into an organization that offers room for young people to be of influence and form a nexus with the Joint Select Committees of Parliament. A parliamentary delegation of Trinidad and Tobago made an official visit to Cuba, where they paid a courtesy call to the President of Cuba, His Excellency Miguel Diaz-Canel. The visiting group continued its activities by participating in a floral wreath-laying ceremony at the monument of the national hero, José Martí. The group also visited the National Assembly of the People's Power of the Republic of Cuba. Also present were officials of the Trinidad and Tobago Embassy, the CARICOM Diplomatic Caucus in Havana, and the National Assembly of Cuba. 2 representatives from the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago participated in the Parl-Americas and the U.S. Congress House Democracy Partnership in September. Senator Lawrence Hislop and Senator Dr. Shada Patasa attended a 2-day parliamentary exchange in Miami that discussed the evolving challenges and opportunities related to digital economies in the region and recognizing the need to continually update legislative and policy frameworks. A delegation from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, led by the President of the Senate, Senator the Honorable Nigel de Freitas, attended the 46th Conference of the Caribbean, Americas, and Atlantic region of the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association in Guyana. This country's delegation also included Deputy Speaker of the House, Mr. Esmond Ford MP, Independent Senator, Senator Suniti Maharaj, Presiding Officer of the Tobago House of Assembly, Ms. Abby Taylor, Deputy Presiding Officer, Assemblyman Niall George, and Acting Clerk of the Assembly, Alana Nadine Henry. Senator de Freitas also made a presentation during a session of the conference which had the theme, Democracy, Challenges Facing Modern Parliaments. September saw the 12th Commonwealth Youth Parliament being hosted by New Zealand in the Pacific region. Youth delegates were welcomed by the Speaker of the New Zealand House of Representatives, the Honourable Jerry Brownlee MP. Debating the Humanitarian and Climate Change Aid Bill, Mr. Kemuel Pascal represented Trinidad and Tobago at the event. Mr. Pascal, who served in opposition, shared his perspective on the importance of the bill and how it could be strengthened to benefit the people of the Pacific region. Delegates also had the privilege of meeting with the New Zealand Institute of International Affairs and the New Zealand High Commissioner to the Caribbean, Her Excellency Linda Charlotte Tepuni, in a roundtable discussion on New Zealand-Caribbean relations. Ms. Jada Charles and Mr. Denzel Julian represented Trinidad and Tobago at the 17th Regional Youth Parliament, which took place in the Chamber of the Public Buildings in Georgetown, Guyana. Youth parliamentarians from across the Caribbean, the Americas, and the Atlantic region convened for the debate. The event formed part of the 46th Conference of the CPA's Caribbean, Americas, and the Atlantic region. During the session, the youth representatives debated the motion, regional leaders to promote inclusive governance through youth representation in national legislative bodies. Ms. Jada Charles, who was in opposition, served as the Shadow Minister of Local Government and Regional Development, while Mr. Denzel Julian served as the Minister of Labour. The Regional Youth Parliament provides a platform for young leaders to engage in meaningful dialogue on pressing issues within their nations and the wider region, fostering leadership skills and promoting youth involvement in governance. The Minister of Finance presented the Appropriation Financial Year 2024 Bill 2024 on September 30th. The bill will provide for the service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on 30th September 2025. The Honourable Colm Imbert estimated total revenue at $54.224 billion and total expenditure at $59.741 billion, resulting in a deficit of $5.517 billion. The budget was based on an oil price of US $77.80 per barrel and natural gas price at US $3.59 per MMBTU. The Leader of the Opposition responded to the budget on October 4th, after which the debate ensued. At the end of debating, the House resolved to committee stage, where heads of expenditure were examined. The budget bill was passed in the lower house on 17 October and introduced in the Senate on the 21st. Debate followed and the bill was passed in the Senate on October 23rd. And the Office of the Parliament engaged youth voices on the budget process with its Youth Budget Initiative. A panel comprising young representatives and members of Parliament held discussions with and fielded questions from a group of eager participants on September 27th. The forum focused on government's allocation and spending on youth activities for the 2023 budget and if youth concerns and issues were addressed. October saw several courtesy calls at the Office of the Parliament. The first was from members of the Suriname National Assembly who met with the Speaker of the House. After signing the visitors' book, tokens of appreciation were exchanged. The ambassador of Ukraine to Trinidad and Tobago and permanent representative of Ukraine to the United Nations paid a joint courtesy call on President of the Senate, Senator the Honourable Nigel de Freitas, and the Speaker of the House, the Honourable Bridget Anisette George MP. Here too, the visitors' book was signed and tokens exchanged. And the third was a joint courtesy call with the High Commissioner for the Republic of India. After Budget Day, another panel discussion was held where participants shared their views on the 2024 reading. The aim of this initiative was to generate youth interest in the budget exercise and foster youth development through social dialogue. The Rotunda Gallery at the Red House put on a double exhibition in the month of October. With the theme, Their World, Our Responsibility, the World Animal Day showing sought to raise awareness about animals while emphasizing the need for their compassionate and humane treatment. Trinidad and Tobago hosts various ecosystems such as rainforests, wetlands, and coral reefs, each teeming with life. However, there is a threat to these ecosystems by deforestation, poaching, climate change, and pollution. Some of the artists highlighted what these threats can mean and their results, while others showed us the beauty of these animals in their natural habitat, enjoying their environment completely undisrupted. Timeless Traditions, Celebrating Chinese Culture and Legacy was the title of the second exhibition. For this exhibition, the artists focused on various qualities of the Chinese culture. Some of the pieces highlighted the traditional lion and dragon dance performances and Chinese women in their traditional clothing. The viewers also saw compositions of the fusion of the cultures through a series of art pieces that commemorate 50 years of diplomatic relations between the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago and the People's Republic of China. October 14th is a day dedicated to the First Peoples in Trinidad and Tobago. The Office of the Parliament recognized this day with a laying of the wreath at the site of the First People monuments located at Knox Street by the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George MP. Madam Speaker was accompanied by the Member of Parliament for Arima, the Honorable Penelope Beckles MP, and a Member of Parliament for Moruga Tableland, Ms. Michelle Benjamin MP. The following day, the First Peoples held a smoke ceremony at the monument. Chief Ricardo Hernandez, head of the Santa Rosa First Peoples community, emphasized the importance of the Heritage Week celebrations as a tool to raise public awareness of the First Peoples' presence and legacy. A 14-member delegation from the National People's Congress of the People's Republic of China visited the Office of the Parliament for 2 days in November. Upon arrival, the delegation, led by Vice Chairman of the Standing Committee of the National People's Congress, was received by the Vice President of the Senate and the Deputy Speaker of the House. Escorted to the meeting room, they were greeted by President of the Senate, Senator the Honorable Nigel De Freitas, and the Speaker of the House, the Honorable Bridget Anisette George MP, for a joint courtesy call. After the formalities, an official meeting was held between the China and Trinidad and Tobago delegations. It was then on to a luncheon and a toast to the cordial working relationships between the two countries. The visiting group was then taken on a tour of the chambers of the Parliament. The 21st National Youth Parliament held its first sitting in November. The private motion for debate called on the government of Trinidad and Tobago to develop a policy to integrate the ethical and responsible use of artificial intelligence into the education curriculum. For 2024, students from 35 secondary schools, tertiary institutions, and youth organizations participated in the event. The leader of the opposition moved the motion, which was defeated at the end of debate. Taking the third place for Best Debater was Surav Rupnarayan of Astra Boys College, San Fernando. Second place went to Jada McLeod of Costad, and Vedanand Hargobin of the University of the West Indies was adjudged Best Debater for 2024. A 4-member delegation from the Parliament of Uganda came to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago on a working visit during the month of November. The visit sought to compare and contrast the different parliamentary systems and models and offered the delegation the opportunity to discuss and assess best practices in selected areas like Parliament's Secretariat and Administration, Information and Communication Technology, Constituency Operations Management, and insights into the Hansard Department. The Rotunda Gallery's November exhibition was entitled Beyond Stereotypes, Men Changing the Narrative, in recognition of International Men's Day, which is celebrated annually on November 19th. International Men's Day was created with the aim of highlighting issues unique to the experiences of men and boys and emphasizes the importance of positive male role models. By highlighting men's mental struggles, visitors gained an insight into the importance of supporting mental health and vulnerability as a part of life. The display served as a celebration and exploration of how men's roles are important to fostering empathy, understanding, and a more inclusive view of what it means to be a man in today's world. Parliamericas, in collaboration with the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, the CPA, and UN Women, hosted a Caribbean parliamentary workshop on making the work of parliaments responsive to the needs of women and men. The 3-day workshop focused on the diverse populations that parliamentarians serve, with the objective of adopting an inclusive approach to legislative work that considers these realities and contributes to greater equality and to laws and policies that work in favor of as many people as possible. The session's content and input from participants informed the development of a gender equality guide for parliamentarians, which will provide practical references and tools to ensure that diverse experiences are accounted for, with specific attention to the most marginalized. The Rotunda Gallery at the Red House's final exhibition for 2024 was titled Frames of Time: The Architectural Journey of Trinidad and Tobago. The photography-exclusive exhibition was the second of its kind at the Rotunda Gallery and focused on historical and modern architecture sites across the country. This exhibition shone the spotlight on the diverse cultural influences that have shaped the country's architecture, from colonial-era mansions to innovative contemporary designs, capturing the essence of a nation that merges the past and present in striking harmony. And 2024 ended with tragic news that Member of Parliament for Dabidi O'Meara, the Honourable Lisa Morris Julian, died in a fire at her family home along with two of her children on December 16th. Member Morris Julian was also the Minister in the Ministry of Education. A condolence book was opened for signing in the rotunda of the Red House. Her Excellency, the President of the Republic, wrote tributes along with the Prime Minister, the presiding officers, other members of Parliament, as well as ambassadors, high commissioners, other dignitaries, and members of the public. And that's a roundup of the major highlights for 2024. From all of us here at the Office of the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago, we wish you a bright and prosperous 2025.